you first need to know what you need. How can you advocate for yourself if you have no idea what's important to you or what you value?
Welcome to the Worthy Mother podcast, where we discuss all things identity, self-compassion, and fulfillment within and beyond motherhood. I'm Emily Rose Hardy, a mindset and self-love coach for moms. I am a firm believer that to be able to take care of our children, we must take care of ourselves first. This is not a parenting podcast. No, this is a podcast where we will challenge the societal expectations of what it means to be a mom, demystify the perfect mom myth, and learn to love ourselves. You are worthy, mama. Let's do this. All right. Hello. Welcome back to the Worthy Mother podcast. You know that I am all about supporting moms to make self-care just a really regular part of their lives. I want self-care and taking care of ourselves to just be the norm. And this week I am joined by Iesha Madden, the creator behind More Than a Mama series on Instagram. And we are going to get into all things self-care, personal development, and self-advocacy. And my goal for this episode really is that you will walk away with more confidence in knowing what you need to do to be able to make sure that you are taking care of yourself and that your needs are being met. So, Iesha, welcome to the Worthy Mother podcast. Can you just kind of introduce yourself? Tell us what you're about.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me, Emily. I'm really excited to be here. I was just telling her that I really love podcasts before we actually started recording. So I'm glad to be here. My name is Iesha Madden. I am a content creator on Instagram, specifically for moms, but I believe my content resonates with you, even if you aren't a mom, because I think self-care is for everyone. Self-advocacy is for everyone. We all need to be better versions of ourselves. And so those are kind of some of the things that I highlight. I specifically make it a point to talk about what I currently struggle with, because I know that motherhood especially can be very lonely. So I try to put out my things and be vulnerable with my things so that other moms or anybody knows that they're not alone in their experience.
Yes, I love that so much. I think it's so important that we are having these conversations and really being open and authentic about our experiences in motherhood. And I know that's something that for me and the content that I put out there, I really prioritize that authenticity and the honesty. And that's really why I'm drawn to what you put out there, because you are so willing to share your experiences in a way that is relatable and helpful, really, for any woman, any mom who's tuning in and listening. And hey, I relate to that. And I'm going to take that piece of advice and see if it works for me. So I really just appreciate the work that you're doing and the content that you're creating. Can you tell us a little bit about your mission behind your Instagram content and like your why? Why did you start putting out motherhood related content?
Yeah, like to be completely honest, I put it out for myself. I was like, the
Yeah.
reason I started it was very selfish. I was a mom, just became a mom in the pandemic. I felt very lonely. And I'm like, there's probably other moms who probably feel this way. So I kind of use it as a way for me to gain community at that point
Yeah.
in time. I didn't really have any other mom friends or anybody else near me at that specific time, and everything was shut down. So it was like, well, we got to do what we got to do. We have the internet, we have social media. Let's try to see if we can get some moms together. So initially, it was very selfish. Like I needed community, but in turn, like it became something bigger than that. Now it's a community for other people. And I love that. I love being part of different communities where we can be our authentic self. So I did think about myself, but I also thought, okay, if I'm feeling this way, there's probably somebody else who is, who knows somebody else who is. And then the cycle continues. And now we're all together 2,000 plus on Instagram. So thanks for being there, everybody. If you are there, and if you're not, join us. We
Go
would love to
check it
have you.
out. Yes, I
Yeah.
love that. Motherhood is really something that connects us all
Mm-hmm.
because while we each have unique experiences, obviously, and unique children and unique lives that we're living, there are kind of these universal struggles, these universal joys, these things that we're all kind of navigating in this world, this complex world that we live in. And so, it's important for us to share our own truths and our own
Mm-hmm.
stories. That's really a healing, freeing thing. And in the process of doing that, it can also really just bring moms together because there's so much to connect about and so much to just share in.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I agree 100%.
So you have spoken to that importance of being really honest and open and vulnerable in motherhood, while also not letting motherhood be an excuse to hold us back from like pursuing our passions, pursuing what we want to do. And I really love that, right? That it's we can
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge we can acknowledge that motherhood
Mm-hmm.
might be hard. There's a lot of things that can challenge us, but also we don't have to let it hold us back from being ourselves. Can you tell me more about that duality there?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are a lot of different aspects that go into like who you are as a mother and who you are just as a person. And so I think a lot of times there's some of us who struggle with actually admitting that we're having a problem and that things are hard. So I speak to that specifically because I'm like, yeah, it's hard. But at the same time, I'll sit with you in how hard it is for only but so long because I want you to actually try to do something about it or still pursue what you wanted to pursue before motherhood or even during. So I kind of, the duality for me is like, yeah, it's hard and I'm with you and I support you. Okay, but let's journey together. What are you going to do for yourself? That's pretty much like how I navigate my social media, how I navigate my life. I hold space for everybody and their emotions of whatever they're feeling, but I don't want to leave them in that space. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I don't want anybody to stay stuck in that space and feel like they're alone. So it's kind of like we're journeying together. I'm like your online virtual bestie. I can't journey with all of you everywhere, wherever you are, but I'm still with you. And I hope that is felt that I'm supportive of you and whatever you're feeling, but also let's go get these goals. Let's go get the self care. Let's advocate for ourselves in the workplace because our lives have changed. And so have our priorities, and we need to address that because everything has changed and probably in the best way.
Yeah, I love that. I want to get into that a little bit more. Just
Yeah.
how it does change, like what we want might
Yeah.
even change, what we want to
Yeah.
pursue, and how that is so okay. And I think that can feel really scary sometimes for moms that
Mm-hmm.
it's like we're trying to navigate all the identity shifts, all the identity changes, and like navigating things that can be really hard. Like it can
Yeah.
be really challenging.
Yeah.
And there's still things that we need to do for ourselves. And I really like
Mm-hmm.
thinking about self-care in a way of like, yes, there's the basic needs we need to have met, but there's also pursuing what brings us joy, what fills our
Yeah.
cup, what, makes us who we are. What are your thoughts on moms tapping into those passions, tapping into the things that they want to do and really like knowing where they should pour that energy? What are the things, because I think sometimes so much in
Mm-hmm.
motherhood, we get kind of even lost in like, what do I want to do with my life? What am I passionate
Yeah.
about?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, I give you permission, I would
Yeah.
say, if you need it, to have a season of where you don't do any of your passions and that you don't really know what you want to do and that you just take the opportunity to rest, recover, reflect, restore, like all those 4 R's. I need you to do that because I think there's a beautiful aspect of just being. Okay, so because I
Mhm.
know I'm used to the doing, like I have to do to be seen, to feel like I'm important and all that. But something I've learned is that in my resting, I'm still great. Like I'm still phenomenal. If I feel like I need to rest right now, that's okay. And that's a long process, especially for women generally. Like we feel like it's always something going on. Prioritizing ourselves is not really the first thing we're thinking about. And so it's a learned like skill, it's like a muscle. You kind of have to flex every now and then to figure out what works for you. So first, I give you permission in whatever season you are. If you don't know what that is, fine. If it right now you are your project, I support that. I support that fully. If you are the project you're working on and you want to take the time to figure out, well, what am I passionate about? Because as we just talked about, things change like drastically, our priorities, and we can't expect to maybe have the same goals that we wanted to. So it's important that you take that time, but also when you do take the time and you figure out what it is, let's not make it excuses, right? Let's try to connect with the people or connect with communities. Let's just take those small baby steps. I know for me, as a mom with ADHD, I kind of get overwhelmed by the big picture of things. So I'm like, man, I want to be a speaker at a conference. I'm just listing this.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, what do I do? There's so many conferences I can apply for. Everything just becomes overwhelming. But the first step is like, okay, just contact one person today and say you're interested. And so I think we have that overwhelm generally because obviously motherhood is overwhelming, but it's also overwhelming to try to like, now I need a part of my brain to shift because now it's like about something
Yeah.
I want to do. And so just take that one step. If it's like, I want to write a book, 5 minutes of writing. If it's, I want to exercise, put on your shoes and just walk around the block one time. Like we have to make it manageable so that we can build instead of trying to set ourselves up to like, I'm going to write a book, 200 pages tonight, and then set ourselves up for like failure. And then we don't want those
Yeah.
bad feelings coming on us because we know we're triggered by them. If we're being honest, like we're very much triggered by the fact that I set this big goal and I didn't do it. Oh, I feel like a failure again. So let's not set ourselves up for feeling those feelings that we're triggered by in motherhood a lot or life in general. Let's just start small. So I would say the two things that I need you to do: work with who you are, figure out who you are, go to therapy, do a lot of journaling, spend a lot of time in nature, figure out what it is that you want, but also just do a small step towards the big goal.
I absolutely love everything you just said there. I think not only is it like helpful takeaways, but there's just so much grace given in that, which I
Mm,
think we need. We need that compassion when it comes to learning about ourselves and navigating motherhood, that navigating life as a mother. And I think there's kind of this delicate balance of knowing we need to pour into ourselves and the things that we want to do as people, but also knowing that if right now it's really about giving yourself just the space to be and to exist. That is a really beautiful sentiment of just, it's okay to be working on yourself. And if that
yeah.
working on yourself looks like resting and really figuring out how to just be, then that's really important. I think, I mean, just, this is the Worthy Mother podcast and thinking about worth and
Mm-hmm.
how we don't have to be producing to be worthy. And
Mm-hmm.
so knowing that we are worthy of all of that, worthy of our own care and love, no matter where we are in our journey to kind of learn what we want to do and actually do it, it's okay
Yeah.
just to exist.
Yeah.
I think that's
In
really
fact, you
beautiful.
are worthy for just existing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
It's,
that's the part where we need to start. That's the foundation. I exist. I'm worthy. Like that's
yeah,
it.
it
Yeah.
has to be the truth that you're moving from
Yes.
because it really is otherwise probably not going to be values aligned when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
like the doing part.
Yeah, for sure. Agreed.
Yeah. So I love that you talk about personal development and motherhood in a lot of what you do because that is something that I relate so much to. I really found that after becoming a mom, I kind of fell into embracing personal development and realizing like
Mm-hmm.
what that actually meant. And it really was like becoming a mom that was the catalyst for learning about myself and trying to better myself in different ways, listening to lots of podcasts, all that good
Mm-hmm.
stuff. I would love to know if you can speak to how you see that connection between personal development and motherhood and how moms can kind of tap into that.
Yeah, so I would like to say that motherhood kind of forced me to be a
Yeah.
better version of myself or look at who I was before, because before I became a mother, I was a perfectionist,
Hmm.
and I was a workaholic, and my work was my identity. And that all had to change. Like it all changed immediately. It wasn't like I had to like have a process when my son came. It was like no more work. I was on maternity leave. Oh, there goes my identity. Right. And so then perfectionism, nope, he's not going to go to sleep when you want him to go to sleep. I was triggered a lot in motherhood because I'm like, no, this is how I've always been. I was able to keep up with this facade or this way of living until my son came and was like, nope, that's probably not the best thing for you to do. So, what our children do when they come into the world is they actually force us to see ourselves. Like, I didn't
Hmm.
even see or notice that this was what I was being or actually identifying, like, oh, you're a workaholic and your identity is tied to work. And I'm like, oh, this is all the things I discovered as an aha moment as I'm going to
Yeah.
therapy as a postpartum mom. I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. Well, there's some things, some ideologies, and some mindsets that I had all my life that no longer serve me and should have never served me, quite honestly. And so, yeah, I was forced to change, and I'm forever grateful for my son. Like, I just was talking about in work this morning. I always ask like a question on Fridays, and I said, what is the accomplishment you're most proud of? And I was like, yeah, just prioritizing my mental health, taking care of myself and realizing what deserves my energy. And I was like, and I have to give my son a lot of credit because it's
Mm-hmm.
because of him that this happened and not anything that I did. So let's just be clear. Like, let's just be clear. Iesha, in and of herself, did nothing.
Yeah.
My son did everything to promote and get me to where Iesha is, as well as my husband as well. But the biggest shift and change for me that I had to actually be forced to see myself was motherhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like this opportunity, really, when you have
Yeah.
these tendencies that, the more I have these conversations, the more I recognize that my experience of being this good girl and being a perfectionist was so not unique to me. It's something that so many of
No.
us are kind of conditioned into, and we go through our lives being able to like meet these standards of perfection that might be really hard and it might be really impacting your mental health, but you can do it, right? Like you're like,
Yeah.
I am showing up and I am doing things right and people think I'm good. And then
Yeah.
you have a kid and you can't really control them. You can like do
No.
your best to implement parenting strategies and whatever, but like you're struggling with your mental health, possibly. You are
Yeah.
struggling with your identity, possibly. You are struggling with getting your kid to sleep because you have really no control over that. There's so many factors into having a child and not being able to control things and
Mm-hmm.
have that perfect facade, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it really is an opportunity to look at those patterns and say, wait, there's something wrong here. Like, this isn't
Mm.
necessarily how I should be functioning in the world or how I want to be functioning in the world, right?
Yeah.
And we kind of have to do something about it.
Yeah.
It's really powerful. And I think that's a really impactful reframe when you are struggling to know that,
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, it is understandable to struggle in motherhood. It is understandable to even not be able to necessarily accept that sometimes because maybe
Mm-hmm.
in every other aspect of your life, you were able to control the narrative and now
Mm-hmm.
you might not be able to. But reframing that as an opportunity is really powerful and really empowering.
Yeah. It definitely has been for me. Like, yeah, it's totally changed everything in
Yeah.
the best way, like I said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did that process of, I guess you got that information, right? You got the
Yeah.
information from having your son that, like, this is something I need to look at. Then how did you reflect on that? What changes were you able to make because of that new information?
Oh, oh, this is great. So I definitely think the changes that I've made since my
Yeah.
son has been here is definitely just the way I see my worth. Since this is a Worthy Mother podcast, let's talk about that. So I think, as I kind of mentioned before, my worth was in work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started feeling like in my work, I just wasn't fulfilled. Like I just didn't enjoy that anymore. And so that was kind of a catalyst for a career change. And who knew that I would like actually be out of that career? Like I would have never thought in a million years. I had this plan, I executed, I thought I was going to retire in that. Then everything changed. My life changed when my son came in. I'm like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. I can't really be giving all my energy to a job and not to myself and my son and my husband and my family just in general. And so that was one of the biggest shifts and
Mm-hmm.
one that I struggled with because I am honest about that. Like I had to change this, but I was like going almost kicking and screaming. Like, no, this
Yeah.
is what I should have done and what will people think and all these other things are going through my mind. But ultimately I decided to. And now on the other side, whoever's listening to this and you're kind of in a place right now, know that on the other side, you're going to see, wow, I'm really glad that I did that thing for me. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a first step in like really me promoting the more self advocacy. Because when I went to this interview for this new place, I was like, okay, well, I'm a mom. And if something happens to my son, I have to leave immediately. I just went in and was like, this is what I need. I need work flexibility. My husband and I are the only ones here. If I have to go, I'm leaving immediately. Like I was just saying all of these things. And I was like, man, that's probably very bold of me, like even thinking about it. But I was like, I can't go from a situation that I was in into another one that could
Yeah.
potentially be the same or worse. And so they were like, yeah, we could do all that. We believe in work balance. We believe in family and whatever else. In July, it'll be a year that I'm at this company. And to this day, they've kept their word. So it's kind of a gamble, I guess, if you will, because you
Yeah.
don't know if people are actually saying what they're going to say, but you still got to try,
Yeah.
right? And something else I like to say is that you can start over anytime you want. Like if you want to start over, if you don't like that job, leave it. Figure out a plan how to leave it. I'll help you because, I think that's the passion of mine. Like, I don't want people staying in places that no longer serve them or that they can no longer exist in as
Mm-hmm.
their full and complete self. So I think the career change is what kind of was a catalyst for me
Yeah.
to like, oh yeah, I did this for myself. Like now I can do even more things for myself. And now I can help other people do things for themselves. So it grew and grew and grew just from me taking that step, which I kicked and screamed about. I'm gonna
Yeah.
let you know. So if you are kicking and screaming about this as well, that's entirely normal to me. But yeah, once you do it, it's liberating. And then you want to
Totally.
liberate other people. Like you want other people to experience the joy that you were able to do once you boldly like put yourself out there. It's invigorating. There's not many feelings like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you get to a place where you are doing things that are truly aligned. I mean, that's the word that keeps coming up for me is it's like
Yeah.
being able to make the decisions that are actually aligned with you and what you need in your life and
Yes.
for your identity and for all of this. Whereas you may not even have realized how tied your identity was to something that wasn't actually aligned with what you
Mm.
wanted in life. Or maybe it was at
Yeah.
that time. But,
Mm-hmm.
we change and we grow, and there's differences in our post motherhood self versus who we were before having kids. And
Right.
as we continue to grow and our kids grow, that's going to continue to change, and it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
continuously look at that and say, you know what? It's time for a change. It's time for an evolution, and like being able to kind of give into the
Mm-hmm.
desire to change and like realign your life with where you're at right now. It's like that's really empowering and also really scary. That's okay too.
Yes. Yes, because as we're talking about the duality, right? It could be
Yeah.
scary, but also empowering. Like
Yeah.
that's just life. There are two competing emotions that are kind of with us a lot of the time. And that's
Yeah.
something we have to accept.
Totally. So you brought up self-advocacy and how really in that situation you were able to advocate for yourself with a job and what you
Hmm.
needed in that job. But there's so many other places where we do really need to learn to advocate for ourselves and getting our needs met. I think particularly as mothers, that's something
Hmm.
that can be really hard because we feel like we should be giving, giving, giving to everyone else. And
Yeah.
never asking for what we need or, thinking about what we need for ourselves. And I'm wondering if you have any advice for moms to be better self-advocates.
Yeah, actually, this past week I had a post. So I'm glad that you're talking about this. I said the first step, like of
Mm-hmm.
self-advocacy, is actually like knowing what you need and then
Mm-hmm.
you giving it to yourself.
Yeah.
So it's not about somebody else doing something for you. Like we got to start first with ourselves, basically, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying. Because it's self-advocacy, actually. So I said, yeah, you have to know what you need at first. I have a group at work where we have a mental health check-in, and this past week was self-advocacy. And so I said, what does self-advocacy mean to you? And a lot of people were like, well, I don't even know what I need. And I was like, oh, ding, ding, ding. You first need to know what you need. How can you advocate for yourself if you have no idea what's important to you or what you value? And so I asked them blatantly in that meeting, I was like, what do you need right after this meeting? And people are like, oh, like they couldn't figure out. So I was like, you know what? I need to drink water because I haven't drank water all morning. My water bottle is right there behind this camera and I need to drink water. And other people are like, oh, I need to eat. I might need to lay down. So I was like, okay, so let's start there. It's not a big thing like, oh, I have to do this spa day and all these other things because self-care, we have some ideas about that as well. But really, it is like asking yourself, what do you need in the moment? Just try that throughout the day and then giving it to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think a lot of us are used to go, go, go without even considering, like, what do I need? As you mentioned, Emily, before. So, like, we have to intentionally even set an alarm in your phone or
Yeah.
something that's going to go off and say, okay, what do I need right now? Have I eaten? I talked about HALT this week as well, which is like an acronym that is, am I hungry? Am I angry? Am I lonely? Am I tired? Like that's a great way to check in with yourself before like anything goes further, because sometimes when we haven't had those basic needs, you know what hangry is like.
Yeah.
We start
Oh,
like
yeah.
rah, 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 like we become very, very irate, less patient, less loving, like all of that stuff. And so I would suggest checking in with yourself, just saying, what do you need? And also using the HALT method, which is excellent. I'm going to put like a post-it note on my computer. So I always know to halt, to stop, look, and see, what are these things? Am I hungry? I'm going down through the list and seeing what it is that I can do from there.
I love that. I think it's really making it easy for ourselves to be able to check in with ourselves and developing that habit. I mean, I think that's one of the most important things we can do is be
Yeah.
intentionally checking in with ourselves. It not only then allows us to see like what need do I need met, right? You're like, oh, I didn't even realize I haven't eaten and
Mm-hmm.
probably should do that if I want to feel a little bit better right now and maybe not be so irritable. But then also when we're doing that regularly and consistently and checking in with ourselves, that just becomes the norm. And like I said, I mean, normalizing caring for ourselves changes so much of our lives because we
Yeah.
now are valuing ourselves. We're now acknowledging that we are worthy of our care. And
Yeah.
that can just have a snowball effect, right, into really showing up for ourselves in maybe these bigger ways that are a little bit more effort and they take a little bit more thought of how we're going to make that happen, but it's like if you are just developing those skills and those habits and that norm, it's huge.
Yeah. So it has to be, like I said before, it has to be flexed. The muscle that kind of has to
Hmm.
be flexed, a practice that has to be done until it becomes the norm, like you're saying.
Totally, totally. And I love that that's such a really easy one to just grab and adopt, write it on a sticky note and put it somewhere and just like check in regularly, set the alarm. It's like these are things that we can all do just to
Yeah.
make that more normal.
Yeah.
So, something that I am really curious to talk to you about is your ADHD diagnosis. I recently was diagnosed with ADHD, and it's been like a very just strange process because it's a diagnosis I've been seeking for a while. And
Mm-hmm.
now having that information and being able to figure out like what I want to do with that information, how I'm going to learn to support myself better, thinking about medication, just different things, right?
Yeah.
And you have shared some of your journey being diagnosed with ADHD as a mother. And I'm just curious if you can share, I guess, your perception of just really like motherhood with ADHD, what that formal diagnosis has meant for you, kind of how you're navigating that.
Yeah, I think it was motherhood again that
Hmm.
is the culprit, the one that actually pushed me to realize, like, oh man, I'm really struggling. I'm not as patient. I'm forgetting a lot of things. Like my emotions are kind of up and down.
Hmm.
I'm not just functioning that well. So I initially thought I had it like years ago, like you.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I had to be on a wait list because you have to wait to see a doctor here, or you have to pay like $1,000+ to get the assessment. I'm not rich, maybe one day, but I'm not rich right now. And so I waited for a year. And so then I officially got the diagnosis, and I was like, okay, yeah, part of me knew I had this, but the duality of those feelings came up of like, wow, this is great that I finally know, but
Hmm.
also I feel really sad that I didn't know earlier, and that there were lots of things coming up from my childhood where I could pinpoint, oh, wow, this is because of the ADHD. This is like
Yeah.
why things are happening. This is why you had a lot of mental health struggles. And so I mourned the fact that I didn't know that I had it earlier, but also was so excited to know, like, wow, like this is something that I actually know about. Now I can adjust. Now I can figure out what treatment and everything else like that. But now I'm at a place where I actually think that having ADHD is like one of the best things, honestly, because I've been met with so many moms and people who I actually get close to. And I don't know, ADHDers kind of like get together and they kind of resonate with each other. And they're like, oh, I have ADHD too. And I'm like, oh, of course you do. Like, this is why we resonate so well. And so I've been finding that a lot. I've been connected with a lot of friends who I didn't even know had ADHD
Yeah.
before. But, by me sharing, I'm now like creating my ADHD mom community. So I think the more that we share, the more opportunity we have for others to be in community with us, right?
Yeah.
And so now, yeah, now I get the opportunity to share that aspect of my life. And so, yeah, I've gone through processes of like figuring out what treatments and things I'm going to have. I think I finally have like a good solution, still working on some things, but yeah, I'm proud to have it. I don't see any shame from it. I never actually did. I was just more so sad that, I didn't know sooner, so I could have
Totally.
adjusted. But yeah, I think it's great. I think it makes me an amazing mom. I'm very silly. I like listening to songs over and over again, which kids like to do. So that is a good thing. so, so I like to dance. Like I'm kind of a free spirit and very energetic. Kids like that. So my son and I we have a great time. There are some other days, if I'm being honest, like just the other day, I just felt like I couldn't do it all.
Yeah.
Right. And so we feel things very deeply. I just started crying. And my husband's like, it's
Feel
okay, it's okay. And I'm like,
that.
but I'm not doing enough. Like I feel those feelings of feeling like a
Yeah.
failure come up a lot with ADHDers because we are trying to compete in
Hmm.
the neurotypical way. I want to use the correct
Yeah.
terms, like a neurotypical person. When we realize we can do things, we have to just do them in a different way. And
Yeah.
so sometimes you're battling like I should do it like them or I should be able to do this faster. Like so many things come up. So I'm still triggered in that way, but
Yeah.
I'm working on it. I have much better days than I used to have. And so it's a process. Explore your journey, take it all in, love on yourself through all the hard times. That's what I suggest. And then find your people, find other people that would actually understand. Like even people at work, I go to lunch with just moms with ADHD. Like that's our group and we go out to eat and then we're talking and we're like, oh yeah, I get that. I get that. Like we are understanding each other. And so yeah, wherever I can, I try to find a community. I try to find some people who will get me so that even when I'm around the people who don't, I can still seek out the people that do.
I love that. And I love just everything you're saying. It resonates so deeply with me with just navigating the emotions around it, knowing
Mm-hmm.
that there are things from my childhood as well. I relate to that, thinking like I was coping with a lot and I had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
anxiety as a kid, and knowing
Yep.
where a lot of that probably came from is like just trying to like do it all and that being
Mm-hmm.
kind of hard. And, my mind was always going. And
Yes.
there's just
Yep.
a lot that came with that. But then also the beauty of existing in this time when we do see a lot of women now being diagnosed, because I think a lot of girls were, it was, just missed.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't
Yeah.
come up the same way it does in boys. And I think motherhood, I see that that kind of opens people up more to experiencing the inability to cope with some of these like neurotypical ways of existing, I guess, that
Mm-hmm.
we,
Yeah.
have been able to kind of mask and just exist in that way. And it's hard. But
Yeah.
now, as a mother, it's clear that it's just not working. And so it's really exciting to exist in a time when the support exists and there is the
Yes.
ability to have these communities and these conversations and just keep learning and understanding it more. So I appreciate you sharing
Yeah.
that just from like a, kind of selfish perspective too, just
Yeah.
another mom who's gone through it. And we've got this.
Yes, we do. Together.
Yes,
Not
together,
alone.
not
Together.
alone. Yes, I love that
Yes.
so much.
Yes.
Iesha, this conversation has been incredible. At the end of the conversations, I really love digging in just explicitly to self-care, talking about how you take care of yourself, and if you have any tips for moms to make sure that they are caring for themselves regularly.
Well, the first thing I want to say before I tell you what to do is that I need you to give yourself grace. Like wherever you are right now, you're like, I haven't been taking care of myself. I know I should. We don't want that
Mhm.
energy. Give yourself grace and make peace with it and say, I haven't been taking care of myself, but I'm willing to make a change. Let's reframe the way we're thinking about ourselves and the way we take care of ourselves. And then start small. Again, like I'm going to say with that I said before, is to just start small. And one thing I'm actually going to say is to go back to something that you enjoyed in childhood. I heard that in a podcast. I don't remember whose podcast it was because I listened to a lot, but I heard it in a podcast which was saying that a lot of us as adults don't have fun. So,
Mhm.
like, to go back and figure out what is fun for us, kind of go back and look at what you did as a child. I spent a lot of time outside. So that's what I started doing. I started going on walks. Walks have been amazing. I get the best ideas and my mind just goes wherever it wants when I'm outside in nature. And so, what was that for you? Is it painting? Is it coloring? Like you can even get in a coloring book and just go back to something that you used to do and see how you feel. If it's not hitting anymore, then try something else. Look at this kind of as an experiment or a project to figure out what works for you. Look at it as like something fun or challenge to figure out what do I really need and what do I like. Try different things, maybe go out to eat by yourself, like just do different things until you figure out like what's filling your cup and what's not. It's going to be a trial and error process for sure. Don't expect like everything that you try, you're gonna be like, oh, well, that didn't work. I'm done now. Please don't stop. Please go to the next thing and figure it out or talk with other people. If you like doing things socially, get into something that could be a group book club, exercise group, running club, anything that requires a group, painting, group class, cooking class, whatever. So try that too. That's my advice.
I love what you said there about like making it a fun challenge to figure it out because I think that it can feel like, God, I don't even know what I like to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And how am I supposed to figure that out? And it's like, well, maybe have fun in the process of figuring it out. Try the thing and be
Yeah.
like, wow, I do not like painting. That was really not that fun for me. Cool. I know that I'm
Yeah.
not going to spend my next weekend painting because I wasn't into that. Let me do something different.
Yeah.
Let me, whatever it is, and just kind of taking a different approach than feeling like there's so much pressure to figure it out. And more so, like, this is kind of a fun thing that I get to do right now. I get to explore the things that I like I did when I was a kid, right? Like we all do
Mm-hmm.
when we're kids. We kind
Yeah.
of learn what we like to do because we're not just born necessarily knowing. So that's a cool reframe there.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you just let listeners know where they can find you? You really do have such incredible content. I really love following you on Instagram. So let us know where we can follow along.
Yeah, so I am on Instagram at More Than a Mama Series. That's where I share most of my content about what I've talked about here. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to build my LinkedIn, guys. So if you are on LinkedIn, you can find me on there at Iesha Madden M.ed. My master's degree is up there. So I share my professional stuff on there. Sometimes I share it with you guys on there, but this is more like personal things that I
Mm-hmm.
share on there. But if you want to connect on LinkedIn, I do share some of my content from More Than the Mama series on LinkedIn as well, because I think it's important to share all aspects of your life and what you do. So yeah, you can find me there. I have, some things coming up, some lives. This is how my page started, actually, with just going live with different moms. And so I'm trying to get back to that. And now that I have the capacity to do so, and yeah, that's where you can find me. There are also some links on my page where you can see some other podcasts or things that I've done. I try to keep them up there just so people can see it there. But yeah, join me. I would love to connect with you, love to talk with you, learn more about you and your story. And yeah, let's do it. Let's be friends.
I love it. Definitely, you guys go give her a follow. Just really good stuff, I promise. Iesha,
Yes.
thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited that we finally got to have this conversation and just like such alignment between our messages. Super excited to just get to share this space with you.
Yes, I had an awesome time. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and thank you for tuning in. You are worthy, Mama.